The Massena Central Red Raiders, winners of Section 10, host the Oswego Buccaneers, winners of Section 3. The Massena Central Red Raiders coming into tonight's game with a 21-2-1 overall record. The Oswego Buccaneers, 13-9 overall. Glad to have you with us here for the first live telecast of Massena Central Red Raider hockey here on Edwards Production Sports. And we felt that it would be nice to recap the season, the Massena Central Red Raiders' fine season, the 1992-93 season up to now. And we felt this would be a great time, and nobody better than the head coach of the Massena Central Red Raiders to help us out, Coach Tim Long. Coach, thanks for stopping by. And December 4th, the Red Raiders opened up their regular season. A winners 8-4 in the first round of the Potsdam Booster Tournament. In that game, Mike Ramsdale, 17 saves in the win. Massena trailed early but came back.
Well, actually, I think we jumped out maybe 2-0 in the first period. And then Canton came back with a pretty strong second period, and in fact took the lead, tied the game, and went ahead 3-2. And I believe we came back in the third period with 5 straight goals, and kind of took the game away from them. And as you say, it ended up 7-4. But a very good start for us against a very good team. We were very pleased with the way our boys played, and especially our goaltending, which had been at that point was a question mark for us.
Now on Saturday, you took on the Potsdam Sandstoners in the championship game, and Massena, of course, winners of the Potsdam Invitational, the Potsdam Booster Tournament. In that game, Brian Garsha with 28 saves, and he had 18 in the third period.
That was a good game. We had some pretty good firepower, and we played quite well in our own end. But again, that was at that time of the year, that was a real surprise for us, a real pleasant surprise, as Brian did so well in the third period in that game and stopped many difficult shots, and made us feel better going into the season, seeing both of our goaltenders who've been primarily untested in the previous year, but come out on top against 2 very tough teams. We felt real good about the beginning of the season at that point.
So the Red Raiders, after a good start in the 1992-93 season with 2 wins underneath their belt, then on Wednesday, December the 9th, the Red Raiders hosted the Northwood Bees. And in that game, Massena had 63 shots on the Northwood Bees goalie. And in that game, it was Brian LeBombard leading the way with 2 goals.
That was a good game for us. As you mentioned, the shots were very heavily our way. Offensively, we moved the puck and we skated very well. We faced an excellent goaltender. In fact, we faced him a little later on down the road, and again, he did a good job. But we did the job in our own end the few times that we were tested there. And the big thing was our movement of the puck and the melding or the gelling of our forward lines, and being able to apply pressure and getting good offensive chances and creating good offensive chances. That was a good game for us.
Now, Red Raiders then on Saturday, December the 12th, went to Salmon River and took on the Salmon River Shamrocks and came out with an 8-1 win. In that game, Jason Chilton and Josh Spanberg led the way with 2 goals and 2 assists apiece. Sebastian Bergeron and Brian LeBombard also had 2 goals in that game, Coach.
That was an interesting game. It was kind of a turning point for whatever reason in that game. The Chilton line, which at that time consisted of Spanberg and Gladding and Chilton, did quite well and ranked some points up. At that time, our second line consisted of Tyo and Cameron and Sebastian Bergeron, and Sebastian came out with a couple of goals. And the third line was Brian LeBombard, Matt Reed, and Brian Terry. And they scored. So our scoring was pretty balanced in that game. And, an additional surprise was the outstanding play of Jason Simpson, our third goaltender. So, again, we were reinforced between the pipes. We'd played quite well in our own end defensively, and the scoring was quite evenly spread out.
That was one of the question marks coming into the season for Massena, was the goaltending.
Only in the sense that we hadn't been tested at this level. Mike was the third goaltender last year. Of course, our goaltending was split between Tim Hayes and Doug Cullum, 2 excellent goaltenders, and they took the bulk of the play. So Rammer, or Mike, was untested up to that point. Brian, a junior coming up from Bantams. Jason Simpson, kind of a bit of a question mark coming back to Massena from the Midwest, and it was just that we hadn't seen them play, so that's where the question marks developed. Of course, once they had their opportunities, we found out very quickly that that was one of our strong suits, the goaltending, and it's continued to be so throughout the season.
The Massena Central Red Raiders at that point 4-0 and took their show on the road to Plattsburgh on Wednesday, December the 16th, when they took on the Plattsburgh Hornets, and the Red Raiders come out winners 7-4 in that game. Jason Chilton had 2 goals and 2 assists. Brian Terry had a goal and 2 assists. Josh Spanberg, Trevor Cameron, Mark Tile, and Matt Reed finished out the scoring in that game, and Mike Ramsdale had 20 saves.
That was kind of a little bit different game for us. Probably the least as far as quality and just about anything else that you can tie into the game that we played as a team. Maybe a low spot in the season. However, we were fortunate. We came through. We've always had a bit of reservations about playing in Plattsburgh. It's been kind of historic now for the last 4 or 5 years. The ice is not to our doesn't suit us. It's a little warm in the building. We're used to very fast ice, and that's our first experience on ice of that type. And the boys know about it, and they tend to talk about it. I think too much they talk about it. And we've never felt good about playing in their building. We did get off to a pretty decent start, but we kind of bogged down in the second period. And in fact, I think they made it 5-4, and we came back with 2 goals in the late in the third period to put the game away. But let's say it's not the high point of the season by any means.
So the Red Raiders 5-0 at that point, and they traveled to Ogdensburg on Friday, December the 18th, and Saturday, December the 19th. And to play in the Ogdensburg Invitational Tournament. And in that tournament, the Red Raiders played on Friday night against a team from Ottawa, St. Matthews. And the Red Raiders, winners in that game by the score of 10-4. Derek Gladding and Trevor Cameron had 2 goals each and 1 assist. Josh Spanberg and Jason Chilton had a goal and 3 assists each. Chris Aldis, Matt Reed, Mark Tile, and Sebastian Bergeron also scored goals in that game.
Well, although the score was a little lopsided, we had very good feelings about that game, and you just mentioned most of them because the scoring was very widespread, and a number of people were on the score sheet, which shows good team play. And we felt that we did play quite well as a team there, and although St. Matthews wasn't that strong, we moved the puck quite well, and we didn't go into individual type things, which is very important, I think, as a team. And we played together as a team, moved the puck, and as a result of that, everybody took a part in the scoring. We were very happy with that game.
So that made the Red Raiders advance into the finals of that Ogdensburg Invitational Tournament. And in the finals, they played Oswego, and they won that hockey game 5-3. But Coach, we're not going to talk about that game right now. We're going to push that one alongside and talk about that after.
Okay.
But that made the Red Raiders 7-0 at that time. And then Massena played just before Christmas on December the 23rd at the Massena Arena when they hosted the St. Lawrence Central Larrys. And the Red Raiders won that hockey game by the score of 9-1. In that game, Mark Tile and Trevor Cameron had 2 goals and 3 assists each. Chris Aldis had a couple of goals and 1 assist, and they led the way in that game.
Yeah, I think going into that game we had kind of, maybe a couple games before that, we had adjusted our lines a little bit, and actually we've come full circle since then, and we're back to where we'd started with Jason Chilton centering Josh Spanberg and Derek Gladding, and Trevor Cameron centering Brian LeBombard and Mark Tile, with Matt Reed and Brian Terry and Sebastian Bergeron, and that's the point that we're at right now. In that St. Lawrence Central game, we displayed an awful lot of offensive firepower, and we moved the puck very well. It was a good game for us, despite the score. We played very well, and the score indicates the way we played. It wasn't individual heroics and so forth. The scoring was spread quite. Various people scored, and we were very happy with that. Now, I think we're starting to get into a bit of a character in our team, and the way we've picked up team play, and this goes on and leads into the rest of the season very well.
Now, if my memory serves me correctly, I think that was the first game Chad Willard played too.
I believe you're right, and in fact, I think he goes out and gets an assist in that game.
Right.
Yeah, it was very, very nice for him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Red Raiders then took some time off during the Christmas holidays. I talked to you on the phone at that time, and you said, well, it's good and it's bad. I would have liked to have gotten a game, but things just didn't work out with the schedule and the number of games we play throughout the season. But then on the other point, we got a couple of guys hurt, and it's nice to just give them a rest at the time. So Massena then, after the Christmas break, goes into Potsdam on January the 6th, the Wednesday night, and they take on the Potsdam Sandstoners. A tough game. Always Potsdam and Massena, a great rivalry. And they ended up tied 3-3. And in that game, it was the Mark Tile, it was the Trevor, the Tile, Cameron, LeBombard line who accounted for all 3 goals in that game. A quote out of the papers said, Coach, you said our team didn't check that well that night.
Well, we had been off. We had been off for a couple of weeks. Checking maybe might not have been as intense. I thought we carried the play in that game. I feel personally responsible for that game. We were up. We'd given up, I think, a breakaway, which sometimes happens. But we were in comfortable control of that game. It was 3-2, and I think there's 30-some seconds to go in the game, maybe 40 seconds to go in the game, and. We ended up on the ice with an inexperienced line. That's coaching. That was my fault, and I take full responsibility for that. It's something that hasn't happened since then, and it won't happen again. But it's not. It's maybe being comfortable with the game well in hand, and you don't ask people to do things that maybe it's not their turn to do them. You'd like to have your seniors and your most experienced people out there. We didn't have them out there. That's a coaching error. They got the goal to tie it, and we came on in overtime. We played quite well, but we didn't get the goal. I take full responsibility for that. It's something that I should have been on top of. But otherwise, Potsdam played pretty good. Maybe you can see a note of disappointment in my attitude and my voice. I'm disappointed in myself for that because it was a blemish on our record. Not that it was that important, but the boys. The point I'm trying to make is I felt even though we've been off for a couple of weeks, we played well enough to win.
My guest is Tim Long, the head coach of the Massena Central Red Raiders, and we're recapping the Massena Central Red Raiders season to date, the 1992-93 season. And when we return, we'll continue with our show.
Stop down to the Hotel Nettle located on Andrew Street in Massena on Friday and Saturday nights from 10 to 2 for the live band nightlife. Visit Jerry Moran on Sunday nights from 7 to 11 for karaoke. And a special note, stop into Hotel Nettle on March 17th, St. Patty's Day, for the live band nightlife from 8 to 12. The Hotel Nettle, where you'll always find something going on.
The Massena Central Red Raiders, with that tie against Potsdam at 3-3, their record went to 8 wins, no losses, and 1 tie on the season, and that set up a January 9th encounter at the Massena Arena as the Massena Central Red Raiders took on Seton Catholic. And Red Raiders won that hockey game by the score of 3-0. Brian LeBombard, Derek Glading, and Mark Tile, the goal scorers in that game. Trevor Cameron picked up a couple of assists. And right from the start that game, Coach, Mark Tile and Trevor Cameron, I think they were all over Seton Catholic before they got off the bus that day.
They sure were. They had done a great job the previous game against Potsdam. I think they're at this time now they're feeling very comfortable with each other with LeBombard out there, and you have 3 quite different players. LeBombard is very scrappy and possesses great offensive power. Trevor Cameron has those same qualities that LeBombard has. He's big and he's strong, and he's an excellent shooter, and he controls play, and he's on the puck, and he just dominates the game when he's out there. Coach Marish is nicknamed Mark Tile Silk. And, when you watch him play, it's easy to see why he gets that name. He's very smooth. He stick handles very well. He's a real sniper. All 3 of them come back and do their job in their own end. They're just a great line. I think the finest line that we've seen in New York State so far, and I'd go out on a limb and say they're the best in New York State as a group. And all 3 of those players possess personal qualities with their game that put them on top. And as a line, I think they're just incomparable. And they're really coming to the forefront now, and they're taking charge of games, and they're controlling games.
Yeah, the first 25 seconds of that game, I mean, they buzzed all around that Seton Catholic net. It just seemed to put Seton Catholic in a hole, and Coach Mike Dandro was quoted after the game, the coach for Seton Catholic, as saying that Massena was just one step above us the whole game.
Well, and I believe you're right. I think they set the pace, the Cameron line. They came out and took charge, and that's they said this is the level we're going to play at tonight, and that's the level that we played at. The game was only 3-0. It was a great show of offensive firepower against a pretty good team, and we were very pleased with that game in our own building, taking charge. And I don't think the game was ever in question at any time. We just played good hockey.
So that improved the Red Raiders' record to 9-0-1 at that time of the season. And then on Friday, January the 15th, the Massena Central Red Raiders played the Northwood Bees again. And in that game, the Red Raiders won 5-2. Derek Glading picked up 2 goals in that game. Trevor Cameron, Josh Spanberg, and Brian LeBombard each scored goals. Brian Garsha had 16 saves in that game.
Well, here again, Northwood comes down, and actually I felt Northwood played quite a lot better than they had the previous time that we played them. They're a fine organization, fine school, and they get good athletes up there, and they had just an outstanding goaltender. Again, we played at a pretty good level of intensity, and we took advantage of our opportunities. I thought we were robbed several times by the Northwood. Well, he's a fine goaltender. But we played good hockey, and we were very pleased with the outcome of that game in terms of the things that we did offensively and the things that we did in our own end.
So the Red Raiders 10-0-1, and then they get into an encounter against the Canton Golden Bears, and the Canton Golden Bears winners in that game as they upset Massena by the score of 6-5 in overtime. And in that game, Rob Parcell, the tournament MVP, as this was part of the Massena Invitational Tournament, with Massena winning the night before against Northwood Prep. That got him into the finals. And then Canton, in that game, with an upset, tournament MVP, Rob Parcell, as I just mentioned, it was his birthday that day. He scored 13 seconds with 13 seconds left in overtime and a 5-on-3 advantage to upset Massena. It was the first regular season victory that Canton had against Massena in 22 years. I'm sure you were proud of that, Coach. In that game, Josh Spanberg, Jason Chilton, Mark Tyo, Matt Reed, and Sebastian Bergeron scored goals. Bergeron's goal took the game into overtime. Massena trailed in that game 2-0, 3-1, 4-2, and 5-4. And if I remember correctly, that was a game that Brian Garsha just had a tough start. Canton scored a couple of goals on long shots from the blue line, and it put you behind early in that game, Coach.
Well, it did. I think it was a good thing for us. It showed us a lot of things at that time during the season. I don't believe we'd been behind in a game. Certainly, we hadn't been down by 2. And we came back and we fought hard. And as you go over that score sheet, you see 5 different people taking part in the scoring. That's a fine thing when you spread them out like that, and all 3 lines take part in your scoring. It indicates strength, and it indicates confidence with your team. And I was just so happy. We came back, and regardless of what happens in overtime, overtime is anyone's game. In fact, we took over the overtime. And we did quite well. We were killing, we were down 2 men, and we killed it down to 16 seconds. And we were very happy with that. The game wasn't that important in the sense that it affected league play. Certainly, you'd like to win all that you can, but I think we overcame. I think we not overcame, but I think we got over hurdle on that game. We found out a lot of what we were made of, being able to come from behind and tie it up, and then when we went into overtime, we carried the play, and those are important things as you go down the road. On Brian's behalf, it's unfortunate that happens. Brian's going to overcome that. Brian's going to be a fine goaltender. We've been very happy with his play. He's tough and he's very quick, and he's into the game and very serious about the game, and he's just going to have a fine career. Those things happen to goaltenders, and certainly it's no mark on his record. But the plus that came out of that, I think, was the ability to take charge, stop the blood. Get a tourniquet on, and then start chipping back and fighting back, which is what we did. And we came back, and Sebastian got that goal. We'd been all over him until he got that goal, and then we carried that into overtime, and then we ran into a little difficulty there. But that was it. We were pleased with that game.
You outshot Canton in that game 40-22.
Yeah, we came back strong and hard, and that's indicative of a good team and a team that wants to take charge of its own future. And from then on, I think that's the way we all felt. That's the club as a whole felt that's what we were going to do.
Well, it didn't take you very long to get revenge, because on Wednesday, January 20th, at the Massena Arena, the Red Raiders hosted Canton once again, and this time a different story. Red Raiders winners by the score of 6-2 in that game. Chris Aldis had a goal, Brian LeBombard a goal and 3 assists, Jason Chilton a goal and 3 assists, Trevor Cameron a goal and an assist, and Sebastian Bergeron and John Paul Janess also had goals in that game. You were quoted after the game, Coach, just saying it was important for this team to avenge the overtime loss.
Well, I think it was. We're very happy that Rob Parcells scored some goals on his birthday, and that Canton was able to pull one out, after 20 years. And we're so pleased that Canton came into Division I because it offers us more, on a serious note, it offers us more competition, and they feel that it's to their benefit too as they go into Division II play, and we're pleased with that competition. And I'll say this probably more than once. I've said it 2 or 3 times now as we've gone on. The scoring in that, I think we have 6 goals from 6 different people. That's excellent balanced scoring. And now you've got, of course, Aldis is a great goal scorer, and he appears in the score sheet now, and he appears as we go along during the season. He starts to get some big goals, and the other people, the Chiltons are scoring, the Camerons are scoring, the Lombards are scoring, the Tiles are scoring, the Bergeons are scoring, and so forth. And that's indicative of a very strong team, and a team that's basically unselfish and moves the puck. And that's what we had. 6-2 wasn't the story of the game. I think we were 5-0 before they got on the score sheet. Maybe it was 6-0 before they got on the score sheet. We totally dominated, I felt. We played a good team, and forced them to a standstill, and we were ecstatic after that one. That added to our character, and it showed us a little more of the things that we knew we had to do and that we were capable of doing.
So the Red Raiders 11-1-1 at that time of the season, and then they traveled on Saturday, January 23rd, to Plattsburgh to take on the Plattsburgh Hornets once again. This time the Red Raiders winners 7-1 in that game to improve their record to 12-1-1. Mark Tayo had 3 goals, the hat trick in that game. Josh Bamberg had 2 goals. Sebastian Bergeron and Brian LeBombard also scored. Oh, no, I believe that game was at home at the Massena.
That was a home game, yes.
But the Red Raiders, Brian Garsha, 15 saves in that one, Coach.
Yeah, we came out and, we had complete control. We're playing with a lot of confidence now, and it shows up. And, sometimes things are deceiving. We have many players. We dressed 23. We'll play some of our games, many of our games we'll play with 4 lines and 4 sets of defensemen. And that's to give everyone a chance to play. And we do it from the outset of the game because we feel that individuals who don't have those opportunities to play in every game need to be out when the game's in question rather than when it's out of hand. And I think that's held us in good stead. As a result of that, though, you're out of sync as far as your top lines, your first 3 lines are concerned. And this affects the scoring. We don't mind that. We got our goals, and we got our win, and it was a very nice one for us. But again, everyone has the opportunity to play, and it's a nice win for us.
So on Wednesday, January 23rd, the Red Raiders traveled to Ogdensburg, and with a 12-1-1 record going into that game, Massena taking on OFA, and OFA led 3-1 in this hockey game. Then the Red Raiders came back. Brian LeBombard had 2 goals in that game. Mark Tayo and Derek DeRocher each had a goal and 2 assists for the Red Raiders. Sebastian Bergeron and Chris Aldis also scored. Trevor Cameron had 3 assists in that game. And Mike Ramsdell, I guess in relief, Coach, had 16 saves, but Ramsdell did not start. Kind of a shaky start in that one for you.
Well, yes, it was. It was a shaky start for the team, is what it was. We gave up a goal. We gave up a couple of goals that maybe we shouldn't have given up, and we might have been back on our heels just a little bit. We made our change, and the change wasn't necessarily a reflection on the goaltending up to that point. The change, is in baseball. You can't fire the team; you fire the manager. Sometimes in switching goaltenders, you're able to shake the team up, and whether or not that was what caused things is not very important at this point. The important thing is that we didn't lose composure at all. We didn't lose control. We came back and chipped away at them as we knew we could. And now we're playing with confidence, and Ramsdell completely shuts the door. And the fellows just take charge and get back into the game and take the game over. We may have been back on our heels just a little bit in that first period, and maybe it was kind of like a wake up call. But we got back into it very quickly and took the game over. And again, it was I think it's a sign of a team that's maturing and that's playing with confidence. And it was a good game for us.
That ended the games for the month of January for the Massena Central Red Raiders. And then on Wednesday, February the 3rd, They hosted Potsdam. The Potsdam Sandstoners, as I mentioned before, are always a big rivalry against Massena when they play one another. Red Raiders get 2 goals and 2 assists from Brian LeBombard, a goal and an assist from Mark Tayo, a goal and an assist from Trevor Cameron. That line accounted for all 4 goals in that game. Red Raiders come out winners 4-1. Mike Ramsdale had 16 saves in that game.
Well, of course, there's a couple of big stories there. Certainly that line, that Cameron LeBombard tile line, was excellent, and of course they've been playing now for several games, and they've been carrying the firepower and scoring the big goals. Mike Ramsdale comes up exceptional here. I think he stops at least 3 breakaways. He stuffs Potsdam. Potsdam seems to their game plan is to wait for a breakaway, kind of stall things and slow things down, and it works very effectively. I think it's a good game plan for them, and they'll try to get out there and get a breakaway, and of course that takes the wind out of your sails, especially after you've outshot them maybe 4 or 5 to 1 or 6 to 1, in a certain period of time. But Ramsdale now has come forth as the goaltender, and he's in charge, and the fellas have confidence in him, and he just takes control, and he doesn't let anything past him. And I'm not sure, but I think Potsdam scores first in that game, and we come back with 4 unanswered goals.
They did score first in that game.
The good thing about that, or the important thing I think there, is that the team never loses their composure. They never get rattled. They just wait their turn, and when the chances come, they put the puck in the net, and they did their business. And now you've got a team that's maturing, and coming down the stretch and playing with confidence, playing really well.
So the Red Raiders improved to 14-1-1 at that point in the season. Then on February the 6th, the Saturday, the Red Raiders traveled back to Plattsburgh, but this time to take on Seton Catholic. And in that game, the Red Raiders winners 6-2. Sebastian Bergeron had 2 goals and 2 assists in that game. Matt Reed had 2 goals. Jason Chilton and Trevor Cameron had a goal and an assist each. And in that game, after, I believe, a 2-2 tie after one coach, the Red Raiders broke the game open with 3 goals in the second period.
They had a very strong second period. Came out with a lot of determination and took the play right to them, and skated hard. Got back into what we call our game, and took the game over. And again, the scoring is spread out amongst all 3 lines, and it's a good game for us. We play well in that game.
I'm Chip Chapman, and my guest is hockey coach for the Massena Central Red Raiders, Coach Tim Long. And we are recapping the 1992-1993 Massena Central Red Raiders season to date. And we'll be back with more right after this. You're watching Edwards Production Sports.
At Pete's Jewelers on Phillip Street in Massena, you can find elegant art-carved diamonds from a business that has carried art-carved diamonds since 1950. If bracelets or chains are what you desire, visit Pete's Jewelers for 14-karat gold bracelets and chains with a lifetime guarantee. Or maybe you're looking for the hard-to-find antique jewelry. Visit Pete's Jewelers on Phillip Street in Massena for all of your fine jewelry needs or in-store repairs. They're open Monday through Saturday, 8:30 to 5, and open till 8 on Fridays.
Chip Chapman back with head coach Tim Long of the Massena Central Red Raiders. The Massena Central Red Raiders at this time were 15-1-1 going into Tuesday's game, February 9th, a home game against the Ogdensburg Blue Devils, a game which was postponed earlier in the season because of inclement weather. In that game, the Red Raiders got 13 points from that Trevor Cameron, Brian LeBombard, Mark Tayo line. Red Raiders, Trevor Cameron, 4 goals and an assist in that game. Brian LeBombard, 3 goals and an assist. Mark Tayo had 4 assists. Brian Terry picked up a couple of goals, and then several players had 1 goal in that game. Jason Simpson got the start and picked up 22 saves in that game.
We were very happy for Jason. Jason had started in the original Ogdensburg game, and he didn't run into. I was going to say, he didn't run into bad luck. We didn't play quite well, up to par for him. And we made the change, and he was disappointed in that, and rightfully so. Asked for the start against Ogdensburg, and he was welcome to it. He wanted to play, and he did play well. Unfortunately for Ogdensburg, we're in a period now where I think we're playing maybe 7 games in 12 days. We've got a real stretch here to go through, and it starts with the Ogdensburg. Well, it started with that Saturday, and then we come back on Tuesday. I think we went Wednesday, and then Friday, Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday. But we're keyed up for that. We've been practicing well, and things are going well for us. That Cameron line explodes. And again, I think Ogdensburg, it's their misfortune that they catch us at that particular time because we're starting to go up the going into the stretch, and the kids are prepared for it, and they're just playing excellent hockey. And we played super hockey against Ogdensburg. I think it was a game that we were especially proud of the fact that we headmanned the puck and we shared the puck and we moved it all over the place. And when we do that with our skating skills and our strength, we can do some pretty awesome things on offense, and we caught Ogdensburg, and there's no intent to rub anybody's nose into anything. It's just that we played well, and we tell them, if you move the puck and you do play well, that's what the game's all about. Get as many as you can. That's what we work on in practice, and we did. We played quite well against Ogdensburg. We're very happy with that game.
Now, reading the preseason line on Ogdensburg before the year started, Coach, Ogdensburg had a tough year last year. They lost a lot of games. But then this year, with some seniors, I think they had potential to be a pretty good team, but they had another rough year this year.
Yes, they did. I think they're in a bit of a transition over there as far as attitude and talent. Both are concerned. They are capable of playing quite well, as we've seen during the season. Ogdensburg's a great sports town. I've said in the past regarding football, in order for the NAC to be credible in football, Massena has to be a very tough team. So does Ogdensburg, so does Watertown. You have to have those tough teams in there. In hockey, for the NAC to be credible, you've got to have Ogdensburg up there where they're knocking off teams, where they're a real threat, and where they're where they're a real factor. That adds credibility to our league. Canton helped us out with that. Again, I alluded to that earlier, but you've got Potsdam and Massena and Seton and Plattsburgh, and we need Ogdensburg in there. We need them back, and we need them back tough because it's good for us. It's good for hockey in the North Country.
So the Red Raiders 16-1-1 at that time, and on Wednesday, the very next night, as Coach told you, the Red Raiders traveled to Norfolk to take on in an 8-1 win that Massena had in that game. As they beat the Flyers, it was Chad Willard with 3 goals, Mark Taya with 2 goals, Trevor Cameron a goal and 2 assists, John Paul Janest with a goal and an assist, and Brian Terry with 1 goal. Matt Reed in that game picked up 3 assists.
Well, again, the scoring is very well spread out. We were very excited and happy for Chad Willard. He had his opportunity to get in there. Now, we're at the time of the season now where things are starting to catch up with you. We've got some people hurt. Derek Gladden, I don't think, plays in that game. Doug Adams was ill and missed that game. Mike Abinet is not back yet. I believe Matt Willard had run into some academic difficulties. And we're also missing, and I'm not sure now, we're missing some. I think we're missing 5. Pardon me, we're missing 5 players. But again, you've got some people that are able to step in there and play in the event of injuries, and it was Chad Willard's time, and he had a great game. But again, the scoring is quite spread out. Norwood goes into they play a good game against us. They go into a bit of a slowdown. They have an excellent goaltender in this Purvis boy, and we put a lot of shots on them, but they fold in. They go into a defensive posture, and they played us quite well. We were happy with the outcome of the game. We were happy with the way the fellows played. They didn't get frustrated, and that's happened before in the past. They didn't get frustrated. They stayed in there. They took what Norwood gave to them and capitalized on those things, and we were happy with the outcome of the game.
So the Red Raiders at that time 17-1-1 on the season, and then came Friday, February the 12th, and the Red Raiders are going to play at home in the Massena Invitational Tournament. But Friday, February the 12th, also brought a snowstorm to Massena, and Auburn and St. Matthews were unable to make it into the tournament. So the Red Raiders played Saratoga in 2 games, and Saratoga win in overtime on Friday night by the score of 4-3. Recapping that game, Tim McNamara scored with 1:27 into overtime. Massena trailed by 2 goals after 2 periods, but scored twice within 3 minutes to tie the game. Mark Tyo had a goal in that game, and Josh Spanberg picked up the 2 goals that helped tie the game. But as I mentioned, the Red Raiders lost in overtime that night.
Well, that was a good game. Again, we weren't disappointed. Saratoga came up and gave us 3 very intense periods of hockey, which is what we needed, what we were looking for. And they played us quite well. We got down early. Again, we didn't lose our composure. We hung in there. We fought back. We kind of took over play and waited we're patient, waited for the chances to come, and they did. We capitalized on them. Again, we showed that we could come from behind. Again, in overtime, anything can happen, and unfortunately, in the out of the 3 overtimes that we've had, the 2 things that have happened bad for us. But that doesn't, that doesn't bother us, and it doesn't bother the fellas at all, because I think we're beyond that. We have the confidence that we're not afraid of going into overtime. It's not, we're not anxious for it, but we know that we're able to come back and take a good team back to the wire and force a game into overtime. So we were happy with that. We're also missing Jason Chilton and Brian Lombard in that game. Of course, you're talking about a lot of offense, and you're talking about defense in there too. Chris Aldis played, and he's a tough lad, and he played under very trying circumstances. He was hurting. He had an injury to his leg. His medication may have had upset his stomach. He was also fighting the flu. I have nothing but admiration for him. I think in that game he comes back and gets a big time power play goal, and I'm not sure whether he scores 2 goals in that game or not. But he plays a super game. But he's just not up to it. He's not healthy, and yet he gives us all he can give. So those are some real good things about that game.
So the Red Raiders then went to 17-2-1 on the season with that loss in overtime to Saratoga. But once again, revenge the next day, as the Red Raiders on the 13th of February host Saratoga again. Red Raiders this time winners 6-4. Chris Aldis picked up 2 goals in that game. Brian Terry 2 goals. Mark Tayo and Sebastian Bergeron each picked up a goal. A slow start in that game, Coach. Charlie Fisher of Saratoga picked up the hat trick for Saratoga in that game, including the first ever on Edwards Production Sports, a penalty shot, and he scored on a penalty shot goal. Yeah,
we saw that on our tape and showed up, and it was a good call by the officials. He came down and got the first goal, and I think they picked off. We were a little sloppy on our power play, and they were shorthanded, and we like to work the puck down low and draw forecheckers in with us and then start out high with it, but we didn't give that a chance to happen. We moved the puck right just inside our blue line, sucker pass. They picked it off the stick of our defenseman, went down 2-0 and scored. So we're down 2-0 early. Doesn't bother anybody. I say it doesn't bother them. It doesn't upset anyone. People resolve. People know what they have to do. We come back, we take charge of the game, and this time we don't let it get away from us. In the meantime, Chris is feeling pretty good, a little bit better than he had been the night before. Jason's back, Brian Lombard's back, and we're playing. We take charge and we play with confidence. And I thought we controlled the game, from that early part of the first period right straight on through the end of the game. It was a good game for us against a good team. And I've been on record. I think Saratoga gave us the 6 most intense periods of hockey from any one team that we faced all year.
So the Red Raiders at that point, 18-2-1 on the season, and coached a regular season now starting to wind down. And you host Tupper Lake on a Monday night, and the Red Raiders winners in that one by the score of 5-0 over Tupper Lake. Josh Spanberg picked up the hat trick in that game with 3 goals. John Paul Janest and Sebastian Bergeron each had a goal apiece in that game, and Jason Simpson had 18 saves.
Well, I believe it was 5-0. We played very well here. We moved the puck very well. We played very well in our own end. The Tupper Lake goaltender maybe faces 60-some shots. I'm not positive. I can check my sheets there. He takes a lot of shots. There's a lot of shots that don't hit the net. We totally dominate the game. He's a fine hockey player, the Tupper goalie, and I think his name is Duvall. It's the coach's son, a good hockey player. And they have another boy that's a pretty good hockey player. We take charge here. We're on a roll. We're on a run, and it's a good game. Again, it's a good game because we move the puck and we don't fall into sloppy habits and that kind of thing. We haven't all year. It's been very nice with them.
So the Red Raiders 19-2-1 at that point, and then they finish out the regular season at Canton with a 5-2 win over the Canton Golden Bears up at Appleton Arena, or was it the Pavilion?
It was at the Pavilion. Yep.
And in that game, Mark Tayo picked up 2 goals and 2 assists. Trevor Cameron a goal and 2 assists. Brian LeBombard and Josh Spanberg each picked up a goal. Mike Ramsdale had 21 saves in that game, and he also stopped Mike Bushaw, I think, on a couple of breakaways in that game.
I believe it was. Well, again, there's a lot of people to compliment on that game, but to start out with our goaltending, Mike made the saves, and he made some very difficult saves, and we've grown to expect that from him, and he hasn't let us down. Again, the Cameron line with Silk Tile and Brian LeBombard, they do the scoring, and they take charge. We play a pretty good game. Personally, that's a great game for us because I guess because of the overtime loss. You come back a couple days later and you kind of redeem yourself, but I didn't feel good till we went back up in somebody else's building and beat them up there. That's where I started to feel good about it.
Mm. So the Red Raiders finished their regular season with a 22-1 record, and they get ready for the sectionals, and we'll talk about that when we return. You're watching Edwards Production Sports.
This month, during the Golden Gift Sale at your Golden Rule Lumber Center, you can save on the 7 1/4-inch circular saw from Makita, complete with carbide-tipped blades, now at the low price of $119.99. This and other great values on sale now at the home of the professionals, your Golden Rule Lumber Center. That's LBM Lumber, Route 37 in Hogansburg.
Chip Chapman back along with Massena Central Red Raider hockey coach Tim Long and the Red Raiders. We just got done recapping the regular season on the road to Utica this year for the Red Raider hockey team. The Red Raiders at this point 22-1 in the regular season. That's 20 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie. And the Red Raiders get ready in the sectionals, and they have a week to 10 days off. They play Potsdam in the finals. Potsdam defeated Ogdensburg to get into the sectional final in Division 1. And the Red Raiders winners in that game 2-1. And it was third period goals by Brian LeBombard and Chris Aldis. LeBombard's goal, 4:37 into the third period. Chris Aldis scored with 6:31 left in the game. Massena outshot Potsdam 21-9 through the first 2 periods in that hockey game. Mike Ramsdell stopped Chris King on a breakaway in that game. Chris Koval, played outstanding in net for Potsdam throughout the whole game, kept Potsdam in the game. Chris Aldis played a very strong game for the Massena Central Red Raiders.
Well, it was a total team effort. We spent most of our time those 10 days. We worked an awful lot on conditioning, not necessarily conditioning of the legs, but conditioning of the mind, and that most of that often comes through conditioning of the legs. And we were ready to play. We've been ready to play. I think that was the up to this point has been the high point of the season because we went into that game knowing pretty much what Potsdam does. They haven't changed much of anything. They know what we do. We knew what type of game to expect, and certainly we got that. I think the biggest thing and the key word here is maturity and patience and self-discipline and team discipline. Again, we knew what Potsdam was going to do. We know what our people can do. We know we're very strong between the pipes, and we can count on that guy. Our defensemen play an excellent game in their own end, and our forwards come back for us. We talk between periods about the game would be won and lost depending on how you're going to play in your own end, not how you play in the other end. And we took that and used it as kind of a watchword for us. Continued to play well in our end, had many offensive chances. We didn't lose our heads. We didn't lose control of ourselves. We stayed very patient. I think we had in the back of our mind, we know that goal's coming. It's a question of who and when and whatever. And the goal comes, and we score another one fairly quickly after that. But we could totally take the game over here. We're on our feet at the end of the game. We're in great condition. We're ready to play another game. This is a great game for us, and especially because it demonstrates the patience and this self-discipline that we do have. That we're able to go along and just do our thing until things open up for us. And we make things happen in the first period. The Koval boy plays an excellent game. He makes some outstanding saves. We don't get frustrated. We come back at him again. He makes some more tough saves. We don't get frustrated. We stay with our game plan, and eventually we get the goal that's going to be enough to win, and we know it. We feel that. And sure enough, it is. And Chris goes in with an excellent shot. And it's funny how young people are, but he'd had at least 6, maybe even 7 great shots at the net. Hit the pipe one time, missed it by a little bit here. The kid makes a nice save there, and that kind of thing. He's kind of getting frustrated and discouraged. And why can't I put the puck in? And I can't shoot today. And then he puts the one in from the point, and he goes, "Nice, you can't shoot, eh?" Not bad. It was a great game for us, and a great game for our kids.
Coach, I think in this game, right at the end, a real attaboy goes to Coach Joe Stark of the Potsdam Sandstoners. He jumps out on the ice because right as the buzzer's going to end the game, Trevor Cameron is involved with a Potsdam player right in front of the Potsdam bench. Could be a real ugly situation. And I'll tell you, Joe Stark, the head coach for Potsdam, just jumped on the ice, separated the 2 guys, pushed some of his players back, got him out of the way. I think that's great because, hey, Massena didn't need to get into any problems right there. Hey, let's just pack this thing up. We've won it. Let's get away and let's go home.
Yeah, well, it was over on Joe's side, and Joe did what he had to do. It was, he did his job.
I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
So the Massena Central Red Raiders improved their record to 21-2-1, and that's where we stand right here. We're current, and as we go into tonight's game, the Massena Central Red Raiders will be hosting the Oswego Buccaneers. We'll be back to talk about that game when we return. You're watching Massena Central Red Raider Hockey here on Edwards Production Sports.
Burns Truck Stop number 9, located on Route 37 in Hogansburg, features discount gas and also a convenience store. That's Burns Truck Stop number 9, located on Route 37 in Hogansburg.
Chip Chapman back with head coach of Massena Central Red Raiders, Tim Long. And, Coach, let's talk about this Oswego hockey team. You've seen them. You saw them in a 5-3 win in the Ogdensburg Invitational tournament. You won the game. Massena scored 3 goals in the second period that snapped a 2-2 tie in that game. For Massena, Josh Spanberg had 2 goals and 2 assists. Jason Chilton had a goal and 3 assists. Derek Louding had a goal and 3 assists. And Chris Aldis a goal. On the Oswego side, Jason Bauer picked up 2 goals, and Dave Vashaw had 3 assists in that game. The game featured real good, continuous end-to-end action, and a lot of skill came out in that game. And you reported after the game as saying it was an excellent game.
Well, it was an excellent game. Of course, Oswego has one line that's just a fine line. Their record certainly doesn't indicate the quality of the team they are. They're a very well-coached team. Pete Sears does an excellent job, and he has for years. This is a very experienced first line. I don't know what the circumstances were. I know they ran into some trouble down, in the middle of the season. Some people were surprised that they upset Rome. I saw Rome play a couple of weeks ago, and I was impressed with them. But I didn't think that they had any one line that was as skillful as this line of Oswego's. We played well against them over in Ogdensburg. We watched the tape the other night, and we'd kind of forgotten. At that time, you had Gladding and Chilton and Spanberg playing together. The Cameron, LeBombard tile line had been together now for maybe a week or so. The Chilton line scored a number of goals, and they played very well. I don't think the Cameron line had quite come together at that point. In fact, they shadowed Trevor through most of the game. They put a player on him. They put a player on Chilton through most of the game. I see that as an advantage for us because they're both outstanding players, and we have other players that can play the game quite well too. I think anytime we try not to match lines with anyone. We start out with a line that we designate. Sometimes it's a flip of the coin. Sometimes it's who scored in the last game. Sometimes it's just the other line's turn. But we'll either start Chilton or we'll start the Cameron line, and they're both capable of starting any game that we play, and we go on from there. And we just run lines 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2-3. I think when you shadow a player, as Oswego did in that game, it puts you at a bit of a disadvantage. And when you try to match lines with teams, I think that's a defensive posture on your part. We prefer not to be on the defensive. We think the best defense is a good offense, and so we run our people out and let other people match with us. That's going to be if they choose to do that, that'll be an advantage for us. Another thing I think that's going to help us out is the fact that Cameron line that they'll see today is not the line that they saw on December 14th or December 19th, whenever it was. we're a little bit different team. I'm sure they're a different team too. They played a tough team over in the Utica War Memorial, and they came out on top. I believe they were outshot 2-1. And yet they prevailed. I think it was 5-2 or 5-3. That's a sign of a good team. We know they're tough. We know their goaltending is good. I think we have more depth. I think we're stronger in that respect, and that's what we have to. I believe our game plan will have to be to stretch them out as far as we possibly can, as we do with Potsdam. I mean, that's essentially our game plan. Stretch them out as far as you can. See who's left standing at the end of the game. Outwork them and out hustle them. Try to take them out of the game in that respect. And then we've got talent besides that. And I said, I think before we played Canton in that overtime loss, I hope I don't put a hex on us, but I think if we go out with intensity and make that work at least as intensely or more intensely than the other team and break it down to a game that's strictly based on talent, we've got more people and we'll win that game based on talent. We'll have to do that with Oswego. They're going to come up here in pretty high off that win from Rome. They've got some atoning to do from last year when we played them down there. We jumped on them and I'm sure they're not happy with that, and they'd like to correct that. But we're looking for a good game. We're looking for a good game from a very tough team, and we're treating it just as we treated the Potsdam game last week. And we're going to work real hard. But I see I want to be going at it from a positive thing and see our team's pluses and mention those things. And I kind of put the onus on them because I generally tell the kids what I talk about. And I like to say, well, I tell people you're pretty good, so. You better be good. Mm-hmm. And, I tell people that you back check very well, so maybe want to see you back check well. Mm-hmm. And they respond to that. And I think they know that I say those things, and I say them in a positive way, and we try to get that to work positively for us.
Mm-hmm. So the Massena Central Red Raiders and the Oswego Buccaneers getting ready for state play, for sectional play here at the Massena Arena tonight. The Massena Central Red Raiders 21-2-1 coming into tonight's game. How did they get there? Well, they beat the Potsdam Sandstoners 2-0 at the Chile Arena on the campus of Clarkson University last Saturday, and that put the Red Raiders into the state playoffs. The Oswego Buccaneers, well, how did they get here? They were winners by the score of 5-2 over Rome in a game that they played very well in the entire game. I understand from talking to Coach Pete Sears. And a 5-2 upset win. Oswego was ahead the entire game, and they played a solid game, according to Coach Sears. Coach Long, one more comment before we go, and that's talking about last year's team. Last year, you lost to Seton Catholic in the Section 10 final championship game, but then you got on that large bid. So you go to the regionals, you beat Oswego 7-1. Then you go on and you take on Quintus and you defeat them in the semifinals 8-1. So that sets you up into the finals and a heartbreaking loss 4-3 to Suffern. Can you reflect back on last year and reflect back on working with what a lot of people call the dean of high school hockey coaches in New York State? And of course, I'm talking about Stan Moore. Over 500 wins in his career, a great coaching career. Reflect back on that experience.
Well, that's a nice, easy job, reflecting on Coach Moore and Stan Moore. I've always felt very, very deeply privileged to have been able to work under Stanley. I think he's as a tactician and as a teacher of the game and teacher of skills in the game, there's no parallel. It's been an advantage to me to work under a man like that devotes his his time his life at the time during the hockey season, even off season. He's the most intense student of the game that I've ever been around. He's very astute. He's able to pick out things from among players that are necessary to boost that player's level of play as far as skills are concerned. He's able to analyze games and take from the pro game and from the college game and move it back onto the high school rink and teach concepts that you'll see in college games. Very insightful. I could go on for an hour and a half here and pretty much say the same thing. But a great coach, and certainly it's been to my benefit, and it's been my privilege to work with Stanley on that. on that final game. That was a bitter defeat. I go back and I guess I can say it. Having been the assistant, I think we're a better club than they were. I'm convinced of that. Sometimes it's not in the cards, Chip. It's a cliche, and it doesn't. I don't say it to let anybody off the hook or anything. Maybe we left a little bit of our game the night before against Aquinas. We played just super hockey. Aquinas had a pretty good club, and we just totally dominated the game. And we might have left a little bit of it there. It's hard to you always, and I'm sure Coach Moore does the same thing. You always go back and you're saying, well, what if we did? What if we did? And what if we did? I thought we played fairly well. I thought we were a little bit flat. For that game, and it's a situation that you don't expect people that your young players to want to be in. It's hard to put a finger on it with young players. Their goaltending was pretty good. They have excellent coaching, and we've seen that before. We played some tough games against Suffolk before. I think he played against us quite well. We may have given up a couple of goals that we didn't need to, or normally we wouldn't. But you do. There's no going back. You go back and you say, well, there may have been a call here, or a call there, or a lack of a call here, or lack of that's all part of it too. Mm-hmm. But it was a bitter defeat. It was a bitter defeat. I still feel we had the best team. We didn't come out on top. It wasn't in the cards. I think if it has done anything, at least for me, it's really affected me, and it's affected the way I've coached this year, and it's affected the way I deal with the kids, especially going down the stretch here. We try to use it as a positive tool. It would have been just super icing on the cake for Stan to win that state championship because he had the best team in the state.
Mm. Coach Long, coaches in the Division I level of college sports, if they have a TV program such as this and it goes this long, they probably get paid a lot of bucks. Will you take a handshake?
You betcha.
Thanks so much for stopping by. And
it's my pleasure. I enjoy talking hockey. I enjoy talking hockey with you, and I enjoy talking about our kids. And I'm very proud of the way they played. We haven't mentioned it, but I would like just take a second and mention the fact that we received a sportsmanship award from the officials, and we see that as a real feather in our cap and a reflection on our team as a whole. We worked hard on that this year, and it was a crowning point to our season. The other thing is I was very fortunate enough to receive the Coach of the Year award, and I told the players tonight at practice, that's their award. They get that because of not what I do or how other people see me. That comes from how other coaches see them on the ice. Well, that's the award that should go to them. They made it. They made me Coach of the Year because of the way they played, and we're just so proud of how they've handled challenges and responded. And we're not here today by accident. And again, I go back to that Suffering game from last year. At least from my point of view, we're here for business, and we made a kind of a commitment at the beginning of the year, and everybody was in on it that we'd like to go all the way, and that's why we're here. That's our intent and purpose, and I think everybody any stone unturned until we get there.
Coach, thanks so much for stopping by. Very best of luck to you tonight and this Massena Central Red Raider hockey team. The work's not done yet. You're still on the road to Utica.
A lot of hard work to go.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
My guest has been Tim Long, head coach of the Massena Central Red Raiders, and when we return, it'll be high school hockey playoff action as the Massena Central Red Raiders take on the Oswego Buccaneers from the Massena Arena, and it's live right here on Edwards Production Sport.